And what's up, guys, here on this ice storm here affecting the upper Midwest. Um, so we are having winter weather advisories now issued across a lot of the area already. It's still to be determined if there's going to be ice storm warnings issued across this corridor here across um, northeast Indiana or northern northwest Ohio and southern portions of Michigan. There's a chance that there could be ice storm warnings issued here. I'm hearing rumors that there is a possibility. I think the NDFT forecast model, the NBM model, is underplaying this system because it doesn't go with this forecast at all, and it doesn't even go with what it's currently predicted on these winter weather advisories here. If you look at the NBM and the NDFT forecast model, it's nowhere near what the advisories suggesting here. The advisories talking about a tenth of an inch to 2/10 of an inch of icing accumulation across this portion of right here across northern Illinois and northwest Indiana. The NDFT forecast model and the NBM doesn't even suggest that, so they're not even suggesting those forecast models right now. Because what's very interesting is that the GFS model has been very consistently showing what the European model is showing now, based on consistency in positioning. Same as the Canadian model. Those three models right now are all in the same area. Remember how the GFS model is way further south? How the European model was the first model to be way up that north, and the GFS model started south. The Canadian model started way too far off to the east, and they kind of both started caving in to the European model. So there is a chance that tomorrow that the system doesn't choke out on moisture, that where you may have a potential, decent ice storm out of this system tomorrow. But it also still comes down to the temperatures, the surface temperatures. It's very important that our surface temperatures are 29 degrees or lower when there's freezing rain happening in some of these locations, because it's the only way you're going to get suitable icing and coating and icing happening at the same time. If it comes down too heavy, you're just going to have too much ponding. The temperatures are not cold enough to keep up with how much freezing rain is going to be coming down. If it does pond in some areas, it just won't work. It won't freeze until cooler temperatures arrive behind the system. But your cooler temperatures that do arrive behind the system are going to be hugging up here. Oops, why is it doing that? Based on all the models, the colder air only stays up here across this, this portion here. All of this area up here to the north of this blue line is basically where the cold air is staying, like the very cold air that arrives behind the system a little bit. And you're only talking about temperatures dropping off into like maybe the teens or maybe single digit wind chills. But other than that, I mean, you're not talking about significant cooling beyond the system. It's going to take a little while because you're still having warm air evade a little bit from the southwest as the system's pushing off to the east. But how far north that warm air reaches to meet with that freezing line, like let's say the freezing line's down here, you still need supportive, really cold surface temperatures across this area right here at this corridor west to east, to cool off the surfaces while freezing rain is happening. If your temperatures are 32 degrees or higher tomorrow, it's a bust forecast for the freezing rain event. Now, if your temperatures are like 30 degrees and under, you're cutting it close, especially if it's just hovering around 29, 30 degrees. 29 degrees will get the job done and get a lot of freezing rain to help stick to surfaces, especially if it's coming down very light across the areas here. Light freezing rain, light freezing drizzle is easier for it to freeze on contact because it's not ponding on top of each other. It's coming down very light. Really light shower passes by. The dry air, the really cool atmosphere at the surface, the cool air blowing off across those elevated surfaces as well. It's going to freeze instantly on contact, especially on the untreated roadways, and then you get that that really suitable icing event, just like how they experienced that in Kansas City, Missouri, about a few months ago when they had a very small light rain shower pass through, like not even 6 miles wide, passed through Kansas City, and everything froze because they underestimated that. Okay, the models are not showing a ton of freezing rain coming through the area. We don't need to salt the roads. We don't have to put liquid. It's not really a big deal. But what was the big deal is that your temperatures were 26 degrees and you had a little light freezing rain come through the area. It shut down the entire city. Chiefs were stuck on the airport. They couldn't get the airplanes off the ground because the runways were completely frozen over. Every single bridge and interstate was frozen over, and they had shut down every single major interstate going in and out of Kansas City, Missouri that night. Only took one little rain shower, and it was freeze. It was all frozen rain, and temperatures were 25, 26 degrees. Everything shut down. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case tomorrow. I'm There could be a few lucky spots based on all the forecast models I'm seeing here where temperatures might be 28, 29 degrees or so, but that's favoring, like, while the freezing rain is coming down and where the coldest temperatures are overlapping, where it's just not 31 or 32 degrees and it's like 29, 28s mixing in there. A lot of the models are focusing right here across northern northeast Indiana, northern northwest Ohio, and southern Michigan. And then some of those locations here that I'm mentioning um, right here in this circle, they're talking about getting up to a quarter inch of freezing rain. So if there's going to be ice storms issued with this system based on surface temperatures, just like how there's ice storm warnings out here, because they're talking about up to 3 to 5 tenths of an inch. So they're talking about, plus quarter to a half an inch of icing out there across West Virginia into Pennsylvania out there, right? But if there's another ice storm warning batch issued, it's probably going to be somewhere in northeast Indiana, southern Michigan, northwest Ohio. No promises there is one issued, but either way, tomorrow is a very large area of freezing rain. Even though you're just getting a light glaze or a light touch of freezing rain, it doesn't matter how much freezing rain you're getting. It all comes down to the surface temperatures and if those roadways are treated. I'm telling you 100%, they don't even treat all the roadways in Illinois on side roads when it snows. 100% there's going to be iced over roads tomorrow. Tomorrow night into Thursday morning, all across Indiana, Ohio, southern Michigan, and Illinois. Do not take side roads. Please, I'm telling you, you're going to regret it. You're going to be driving like 60 miles an hour down a side road. You're going to see a reflection off the road with your headlights, and you're like, what's that? And you're going to slide and you're going to go off the road. I've seen it too many times. It doesn't take a lot of ice, and you can get a light glaze and still cause major accidents and significant travel impacts. So just because your meteorologist or your local news person is telling you, well, don't worry about tomorrow, it's not a major ice event, like, they're wrong. You don't need a half an inch of icing or a quarter inch of icing just to cause significant travel impacts. You can get it on a light glaze, you can get it on a tenth of an inch, or even a half of a tenth of an inch of icing, because it all just comes down to the surface temperatures, how fast it cools on that pavement. Because you just need this thin layer, like this thin of a layer of ice on those roadways, and you're done. Like, you're not gonna drive anywhere on ice, right? So here's these advisories here across northern Illinois. They're talking about, mixed precipitation, including freezing rain expected, total snow and sleet accumulations up to 1 inch of ice accumulations. Ice accumulations now up to 1/10 locally, up to 2/10 of an inch of ice are expected. And like I said, when they're mentioning 2/10 of an inch, they're probably thinking in the back of their head, well, the NDFD and the NBM model could be underplaying the system, because if we look at the NBM model here, it doesn't talk about any of that. It doesn't even get anywhere near close to 2/10. I don't know what's going on with the model here, but it's just not really being that supportive of what the news forecast is showing, which tells me that European model, GFS model, and Canadian model here are kind of all showing some tricky forecasts here, because they're not being fed into the NBM model very well. So let's go over here to the NDFD forecast model. Here's the NDFD forecast model, currently updated right now, from Wednesday into Thursday. You can see how it's not really showing what the accumulations, what the advisories showing. You have advisories back way far back into Iowa, where they're talking about the 10th to 2/10 of an inch of icing. You can notice how the NDFD model is only showing barely any, right? Like I said, don't pay too much attention to that. Freezing rain is freezing rain, and ice is the ices. But the thing that I'm watching closely is that the NDFD forecast model over the last several runs, we go from a 22Z to 22Z. You see how it favors this area right here. east, northeast Illinois, northern Indiana, southern Michigan, northwest Ohio. That's now starting to agree with the European model, the GFS, and the Canadian on positioning of the system. Here's the latest European model. It's been very consistently showing this. Same area here that it's favoring. North of along and north of I-80, obviously, and then you get this carved out, very heavy precipitation of freezing rain, which, like I said, you get a heavy like this, chances of it freezing. You need a lighter glaze, so you maybe like a tenth of an inch to a quarter. Anything over that, it's gonna have a hard time, freezing on contact till after the cool air arrives. That's the Canadian model. Here's the GFS model now. Well, this is the 18Z GFS model, which is very interesting. It actually went down a little bit versus the 12, then the 6. We go to the 12, we go to 18. So now it's starting to kind of get similar to what the HER model is showing, but it still favors the same, current areas of where freezing rates happen. To be honest, any model that I'm going to believe tomorrow is probably going to be the European model, because it's the only model that has not been jumping around. It has been so consistent over the last 7 days of showing this ice potential. It has not jumped around. It hasn't jumped around with the accumulation. It hasn't jumped around with temperatures like the other models have. It just hasn't jumped around. The GFS model keeps going. It was consistent for the last, 6 runs. Now we're at this slop again. And then you have the Canadian model, which is like this. So Canadian model is slightly a little bit more south than what the European model is showing, which doesn't slightly agree with what the news is buying, because the news has weather advisories all the way up to the the Illinois-Wisconsin border. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to spread over into southern Michigan, all the way to the 94 corridor. We'll probably have advisories out. But that's, like I said, one area I'm really worried about tomorrow, once we get whatever, if it's ice storm warning or an advisory issue tomorrow, one corridor I'm really worried about that they're going to have some really tough travel impacts, that you're going to probably have a ton of accidents on. It's going to be your Indiana Turnpike here, 80 and 90, also Highway 20. You got 31 that runs through northern Indiana tomorrow. You also got 69 here from Coldwater all the way down to Auburn. These corridors here right now on Wednesday evening to Thursday morning, you're talking about significant impacts to these corridors if the roads are not really treated really well, right? And when you just get the lightest glaze of freezing rain to come across this, and your temperatures are 28, 29 degrees. This is the current temperature right now. This is your current temperature right now across Angola. It is 28 degrees with an 18 dew point. So it's already pre-set in the game for this area. Temperatures are already in upper 20s. And then earlier yesterday, the temperatures were really cool across this area as well. So the pavement's already cooling off. It's already cooling off, right? So like I said, you got these advisories being issued now across this area, across northwest Indiana. That's the farthest Chicago news goes. So now it's up to northern Indiana to issue stuff now at this point, and also Indianapolis and your other news stations here across the area. But northern Indiana will have to start issuing stuff out of Webster here pretty soon, once they start looking at the models. I'm pretty sure they're waiting on 00Z guidance to see, if there's a possibility of ice storm warnings or not, or they could be upgrading on the day of, and they just go with a high-end winter weather advisory. But like I said, this whole west to east corridor here, all the way from northern Ohio, northern Indiana, the Indiana Turnpike is going to be a very messy scenario if the roadways are not fully treated, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes, they're dealing with other things. I don't know what's going on, but sometimes those roadways are not always fully treated, because they always have a ton of accidents around South Bend and people sliding off the roads, especially on 31 and 20 over there near South Bend and Elkhart. When this is coming through tomorrow evening, across this area is mostly tomorrow late afternoon or evening, starting going into Thursday morning. The time range for down here across portions of northern Missouri and central Illinois is probably after midnight tonight, going into Wednesday afternoon, like across this portion here. But then you also have this portion here. It's probably likely starting Wednesday late afternoon or Wednesday evening going into Thursday morning, which is this area. House about I-55 from Bloomington to Pontiac. Next few days, well, like I said, that's Pontiac to Bloomington. You're gonna have freezing rain tomorrow, um, but the consistency on how far north that freezing line goes and where warm air does invade at, I'm not too confident in Pontiac and Bloomington seeing significant icing out of this event, unless you're along I-80 or north of I-80, because based on surface temperatures and all the other forecast models I'm seeing, especially the SAML means with surface temperatures, you could be like around 30, 31 degrees down here. But if we're around 30, 31 degrees tomorrow, you might see a little bit of icing, but it won't be significant impacts unless you're on the side roads where they're really fully not treated and are just iced over because no one's really driving on them. But I mean, your interstate should be fine, but I would just pay attention to your surface temperatures tomorrow, just see where you're at that point. Even the slightest increase in wind gusts over open areas would increase cooling at your surface, especially on elevated bridges and stuff too. So you're gonna put that into a factor that you need a suitable, stronger surface wind with ice storm warnings as well, which also cools off your surface and upper elevated bridges and surfaces, just besides a cool surface temperature as well. But they even have winter weather advisories all the way back here into central Iowa, where they're talking about light glaze of ice expected before precipitation ends Wednesday evening. Because surface temperatures out here across central and northern Iowa, if you get some ice and or freezing rain to happen just north of Des Moines out here, where they're talking about a light glaze, surface temperatures out there are going to be in the upper 20s, like 28, 27 degrees up there, especially near Waterloo. If they get some freezing rain up near Waterloo and Cedar up there, surface temperatures will be 28 degrees up there, so they'll have some issues even if there's like the slightest light glaze. Those side roads out there are no joke. And then you have, like I said, ice storm warnings out here just east of Pittsburgh, where they're talking about 5/10 of an inch of freezing rain. 5/10, so that's a lot of heavy precipitation, but your surface temperature has to keep up with how heavy that freezing precipitation is falling at. That way you can freeze instantly, but I'm pretty sure it's just in a pond and it won't freeze till afterwards. It'll look cool in the trees and stuff, but on the roadways, you'll have a lot of traffic and people driving over the same area on the interstate. Unless the roads are not treated, those won't completely freeze over. You want a light glaze or a light freezing rain shower where it instantly freezes on the road. You have heavy precipitation, heavy freezing rain, it will not freeze instantly, even with the coldest temperatures. It's too much falling at the same time. Let's go ahead and go out and check out a couple other forecast models here. Oh, we're already on there. Okay. So here's the herd model. Here's the herd model. It's 22Z. It only goes out that far. Her model's been really far off. I don't know what the herd model is doing on precipitation wise. The herd model thinks that the whole thing's a bust tomorrow, and nothing happens at all. I'm pretty sure the only reason why they haven't issued any ice storm warnings out here across northern Illinois is because all the models are favoring for colder surface temperatures while freezing rain's falling across northern northeast Indiana to northwest Ohio. That's the only area I'm confident in that there could be the possibility of ice storm warnings out there, because it, like I said, their AFD, the area forecast discussions out here across Chicago, only been talking about the uncertainty with surface temperatures because none of the forecast models agree with each other on how cold the surface is going to be. So we'll have to look at the surface temperatures in the morning and see where our precipitation line is, and also see where our freezing rain line is, because the freezing rain line might be way further south or way further north depending on where the actual precipitation transition line is going to be as well. Those are two different things we have to watch out tomorrow morning, and we won't know till probably the day of, which, like I said, none of the models are really agreeing with each other on that at all either. So here's the 18Z HER. You see this rain right here? That's that southwest wind right there pushing warm air north, right? You see there's only like a 15 to maybe a 50 to like a 75-mile gap here where it's this rain and then it's a freezing rain. Let's switch over to our surface temperature and see what our surface temperature here is doing on the HER. So you see how right here across northeast Ohio, I mean, not Northeast Ohio, Northeast Indiana, Northwest Ohio, and Southern Michigan temperatures are in the 20s, right? See how your temperatures right here across northern, northeast Illinois, northern, and northwest Indiana temperatures are 30, 31. That's probably why most of the models are showing that. Unless your temperature breaks lower than 30 degrees tomorrow across northeast Illinois and northwest Indiana, one or two things are happening. One, a lot of the side roads are either be iced over because there's not a lot of travel on them. Interstates will be fine. Um, but they'll still have the winter weather advisory out there because of the heavy precipitation coming through the area. Now across this area where your surface temperatures are 20 degrees, like 25, 27 degrees, and you have that freezing rain moving into the area, there is a chance that it be betterly icing over. Even if we get a little sneaky freezing rain showers ahead of this main wave of warm air coming out of the southwest as the system's ejecting east, you want um, these lighter showers here. You see these lighter freezing rain showers here pushing up even into Benton Harbor, along the 94 corridor across southern southwest Ohio. If you get these light rain showers out there, I'm pretty sure this will cause big time havoc on 94. Because one, they won't be prepared because a lot of the roads won't be treated because they'll probably think, okay, it's not a lot of precipitation, so they'll underestimate it. But look at your surface temperatures while there's light freezing rain coming across the air. Like I said, it did it in Kansas City. It's gonna do it again if people don't pay attention and wake up. Look at your surface temperatures all day across southern Michigan. It is in the 20s. It's in the 20s now. It's in the upper 20s right now. But the surface temperatures do not move across that area at all throughout the entire day on Wednesday into Thursday morning. Not until like maybe around Thursday evening, right? They go up in the upper 30s. But that whole time frame, while there's freezing rain coming in Wednesday night into Thursday morning, those roadways out there are going to be iced over across southern Michigan. Like I said, that 69 corridor, the Indiana Northern Turnpike there. Um, I mean, that's what you're talking about there. Is you're talking about some icing, but like I said, that purple there is all freezing rain showers coming through. Even though it's a light glaze, you only need a light glaze. That's like isolated showers galore there of freezing rain. But like I said, you don't need a ton of it, and you don't need over a tenth of an inch to cause significant closure to roadways because there's a layer of ice and no one can drive on it. Well, that's the reason. But we can go over here and check out what the freezing rain is showing just on the HER. It's showing less than a tenth of a glaze. I'm not buying that, right? But even then, that would still do damage because that's all it takes to glaze the roads when temperatures are 25 degrees out there. I mean, it won't take anything. It will barely take any precipitation. It will freeze on contact on the roadways because one, the roads are already pre-game because they're already cooled off from last night tonight, and then also tomorrow it'll be still upper 20s out there. So like I said, if there's going to be any area where there's ice storm warnings issued, if there's any areas that are ice storm warnings are issued tomorrow, I'm very highly confident it's going to be somewhere in this corridor right here. There's going to be ice storm warning somewhere in this corridor. It might be a few counties, might be a couple counties, but either way, um, that's where my confidence is growing at this point. That's maybe where I'm going to target for tomorrow to chase this ice storm potential. And the reason why I say significant ice storms because it's not based on how much is fallen. It's based on how much range and impacts there are. You're going to have advisories all across this corridor here that I'm circling, all because of this winter storm, right? So you got snow impacts, you have ice impacts, you got heavy rain precipitation to the south, even a little bit of marginal severe. It's a big system. And when you get so many counties involved there again in a glaze of freezing rain, it does a ton of damage because it's just in a small area. It's a large area. You can't have salt trucks in all these areas all at once, right? They're going to be focused onto the main roadways. That means side roads will get iced over. That means even some of the major highways are not interstates get iced over because they're focused on the interstates, keeping the main freeways, clear and open and running smoothly. That way people can get to their destinations faster. So that's what I'm talking about here when we talk about significant, um, possible ice storm here coming across the upper Midwest tomorrow because it covers such a large area. So they're already starting to issue new winter weather advisories now, just now being issued here across this area, a glaze to a tenth of an inch of icing and also an inch of ice to snow as possible. So they're starting to issue advisories now going into Ohio now right here as well. Those are new. I don't think I saw those just now. So probably over the next, give it about till 10 p.m. tonight, and this right here will all be filled up right here with advisory and maybe a couple ice storm warnings. That's what I'm currently thinking here. There isn't a lot really much more to talk about other than what we already mentioned. But like I said, if there's any forecast model that I'm really hoping for the nail tomorrow, I'm really hoping on the Canadian model. I mean, we can go back so many model runs. Like 4 days ago, it was still showing us. Like it's been so consistently showing us. Um, let's go over here to the pivotal page because it does a better job with the European model with the precipitation wise coming through. So here we go. So this is what the European model is showing. Shows some light freezing glaze here, a little bit of rain, cold rain, but freezing rain mostly right there. And you can see it gets heavier as it goes into northern Indiana, northwest Indiana, but you want to be on that lighter glaze there, just going into portions of southern Michigan, because here's our surface temperature again. Surface temperature up there across this area right here. If we just click a sound right here, first county most south into southern Iowa, your surface temperature is 26 degrees. That is enough for significant cooling at the surface, right? You even have a little bit of a surface wind there too. Yeah, look at the wind gusts here. We're talking about some 30 gusts out there. That's enough. If the European model gets this right, tomorrow you'll have ice storm warnings out there. 100%. You have a surface wind gust 20-25. Surface temperatures just along the Michigan Indiana border, going in a couple counties into Michigan is underneath 28 degrees. Yeah, that's enough to get the job done. Because I mean, look at the freezing rain going into southern Michigan tomorrow if that does happen. Some of the locations across southern Michigan talking about a tenth of an inch to almost to a quarter inch of icing. That light glaze, not the heavy band down there, but this light glaze going across 94 and 196 right there, that's gonna be bad. You got cool air. Well, actually, the warm air coming off the lake, a little bit warm, but you'll still have winds and hands coming off the lake. Cooler a little bit inland, maybe 10-15 miles inland, and you'll get the job done. 100%. You won't see me on those side roads in Michigan because I know how Michigan plays. Those roads out there in Michigan, they get iced over on those side roads, and you won't get off them. I mean, I've seen when I was up there north of Grand Rapids and the side roads were iced over, a couple cars turned out and they instantly went in the ditch. They brought a tow truck to get the guy out. Tow truck went in the ditch. They brought a wrecker to get that tow truck out. The wrecker went in the ditch and they brought another wrecker to get him out. And then they had to bring a plow truck to back up down the road, and he almost got stuck because he was trying to back up and saw the road. That's how dangerous it gets. You don't need a ton of freezing rain happening. And there was only a tenth of an inch that day up there of accumulation. Maybe there's a quarter inch in some locations on some of the tree branches, but what actually coated to the road is like a tenth of an inch. But other than that, that's all I have. I'll give you more updates, as soon as possible as I know what's going on. I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to send stars to the Facebook page if you guys are on Facebook watching this stream. You can scan the barcode and go to my Facebook page. Make sure to sign up as a subscription. It does help support the page as well. When you subscribe to the page, it's like $5 a month. It helps fund my chasing to go out there to show you guys what's actually happening. And then also sending stars to the stream. Each star represents a cent, so 100 stars equals $1. So I appreciate you guys. And also, if you have a business and would like to sign up to be advertised on my pages and also my live streams like the other businesses I have here, feel free to do so. And I appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned.